Um, so this is an introduction to the Simulac project. The whole idea of the project was to go from people's vision, ideas, concerns, and bring it through a multi-actor process, which ended up with visions, ended up with topics for Horizon 2020 last section. Horizon 2020 is the European framework program that's split up into sections time-wise, and the last section was from 18 to 20, 2018 to 20, and this project should feed into the priority setting of that. There was 30 partners in the project, so it covered all of the European Union. And among these 30 partners, there was a core group of, I think it was 8 partners who developed the methodology, managed the process, and the whole consortium also who took care of the communication with the Commission.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is just a small slide about the background of the Simulac project. Of course, there were other agenda setting activities before also. This is a bit of the Austrian view. Of course, on EU level, Lars already mentioned the Civisti project from 2008 to 11, which was at the time a agenda setting process for the upcoming Horizon 2020. And then, of course, the project I'm talking today is Simulact. And on regional and national scale in between, here in Austria, we ran a few projects with an adapted methodology. One was for the city of Vienna. It was called Live 2050, or it was about a agenda setting process for the smart city strategy of the city of Vienna. And it dealt with aging society and technology. And on national scale, we did an agenda setting process which was called Future Foods, together with the Argus, which is connected with the government agency connected to the Ministry of Environment, and they do also research, but also they're an agency for food security and health, and they also do have an own research agenda, and we contributed to framing the midterm research agenda with regard to future foods using an Civisti inspired approach. Okay, next slide please. This is just to give you a really short overview about the Simulac project. It ran between 2015 and 18, and it was more than 1,600 citizens involved, 500 stakeholders and experts. We had our products were 179 visions, which was from the first step of the project, and because we already talked a bit about human resources and also the scope of the work that agenda setting involves, it was more than 82 workshops in these 30 countries. And another interim result were 48 research program scenarios, which were on the way, so to say, of draft topics for Horizon 2020. And the project, of course, ended with 23 suggestions for H2020 topics. 30 European countries, 11 new methods or remixed methods that we used especially for the agenda setting, and yeah, and one online consultation, of course. Next, please. This is an overview about the participatory process that we ran. Within 1.5 years, we were starting on the bottom left corner with citizen visioning workshops in 30 countries. So it was about 36 citizens in each country who were coming together. They were selected not by representativity but by diversity. So we had a couple of socio-demographic criteria, and we tried to find a sample of people who were as diverse as possible with regard to these socio-demographic criteria, such as education, employment, age, sex, and so on. Also country dwellers and city people. And with this standardized method in the 30 countries, they produced in a one-day workshop 6 national visions each. This was really the stepping stone for the rest of the project. It was an openly framed process. It was really not asking the citizens to think about science and technology or agenda setting or anything. We simply asked the question, what is a desirable future? So what should 2050 look like? And they were really open to develop visions, group visions, with regard to scale, to content, everything. So it was a really open, creative process in the beginning, but it followed a standardized agenda in all the countries so that we could reach visions that are comparable. So with these 179 visions in all, we analyzed them in the consortium with the help of external experts and stakeholders, and we came up with 26 social needs, or societal needs you would better call them, which were kind of the overarching and cross-cutting themes which were inside the visions. So after this analysis, we had these societal needs and we had the visions. And with these two products together, we went to Milano to the large co-creation workshop here in the middle. And there we had citizens, experts, and stakeholders together at one table, so to speak. It was, I think, 12 tables. But this was really also an methodology-wise, it was new with compared to Civistia or the other gender setting projects, because before we kept citizens and experts and stakeholders apart from each other. They were just working with the shared content, so to speak, but this time it was true co-creation, so to say, because they really met at this co-creation workshop in Milano, took the visions, took the social needs which we had identified, and then try to draft topics for Horizon 2020 on basis of the visions and the needs. And the results of that were discussed in an online consultation. And parallel to that, we went back to the 30 countries, organized again face-to-face workshops to discuss the research program scenarios that were developed in Milano. And not only to discuss them, but also to add to them. So in the online consultation and in the face-to-face workshops, people were invited to give us feedback, to validate the results we had produced so far, but also to add to it. So for instance, the online consultation was an argumentative Delphi-inspired consultation where you could really add to this stuff. And here it was also kind of the experimentation phase in the project, because in the 30 countries, not all countries work with the standardized methodologies, but we developed also new methods for engagement of different actor groups, and the countries could experiment with the methods and also with the actor groups they wanted to engage. For instance, in Austria, we had 2 of these face-to-face workshops. In one, we invited citizens again, some of them who produced the initial visions, some new citizens. And we had a second workshop with national stakeholders from science, but also from research funding, ministries, and so on. And taking together all these results that were produced in the 30 countries and in the online discussion, we went into a final policy workshop in Brussels, where we engaged policy officers from the Commission to display what we had. At the time, it was 48 draft topics, so to speak, for Horizon 2020. And in that one-day workshop, we tried to really flesh out, okay, which of these topics have a really chance to get into the calls for the next tranche of calls from Horizon 2020, where are overlaps, where do we need specifications, and so on. And yeah, this resulted in the 23 final topics that we delivered in, I think, the end of 2016 to the Commission. Last, please, next slide. Okay, yeah, you can go through the next slides. I forgot to tell you to put on the next slide. This is just a visioning workshop. They received the building vision materials. It was not an information material in the classical sense in participatory processes, but it was a more of an inspiring material. So we didn't frame content-wise, but in this material we told citizens prior to the workshops, for instance, why is it important to have a vision? Why can everyone have a vision? Why and some inspirational questions like, have you ever thought about 2050? What would the food system look like? Or really basic questions like that to inspire future-oriented thinking. Next. Yeah, I already walked you through the whole process. These are the societal needs that we identified. They were displayed on large posters in the co-creation workshop, and as you can see, these are really the topics of the societal needs which we identified: equal and open access to the healthcare system, sustainably produced healthy food, and so on. But they were always referenced to the initial visions. That you can see it in the bottom corner, the one you can't read it, but that's really cutouts from the real visions, and we marked where in which vision we found this content. Okay, this was the co-creation workshop. I already told you also about it. The online consultation. Yeah, please go on. I walked through the process already. This was the online consultation in 3,400 participants we had. It was open for 3 months. It was a bit a pity that we couldn't keep it open longer, but the pressure in the project, time-wise, to deliver adequately to the Commission, to have a chance to get into the agenda-setting process of the calls of the last Horizon 2020 period. Due to this, we could only keep the consultation open for 2 or 3 months, I think. So 3,400 people Europe-wide, it was okay for us, but initially we expected to have, of course, a larger number of participants. Next, please. Yeah, and this was the final policy workshop I already told you about. Skip it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, next. And these are some of the resources we produced in the project. So we have the 179 visions I already told you about. We have the final 23 citizen-based topics for future EU research, which of course cannot only be used for H2020, but also of course for FP9 or Horizon Europe, so we hope. And there's this inspiration catalog with new and remixed participatory methods for agenda setting, which you can all find on the Simulact homepage. Next. And yeah, these were the visions. You can also you can also find the national visions on the website, which are quite interesting to look at comparisons. We did a bit research on that. There are 2 papers. I have references in the last slide, so you can check out this if you want. But due to the time we have, I think I will not tell you much more about this. Next slide, please.
Yeah, you told about that.
Yeah, and the inspiration catalog is quite interesting. Also, the new methods are in the Engage 2020 action catalog, so you can find it at actioncatalog.eu. Engage 2020 was also a huge EU project with looked at all the participatory methodologies that Horizon 2020 had used so far, and we put our 11 methodologies in there also, so you can really look at the left side. You can tick the box at what's the objective of your method. Here you can select program development and stuff like that. You can use the scale, and then you will find the method. It's quite an interesting tool, I think. Next, please. Yeah, this is just to give you a brief overview of what the final topics look like. So as you can see on the right side, of course, we oriented ourselves to produce results that are adoptable for the H2020 framework. So you have the usual challenge, scope, and expected impact. And we identified also which grand challenges this topic could belong to. But this is an overview of what the 23 topics look like. We ordered them by societal challenge, and it's quite interesting to see where we had a lot topics in which challenge and in which we didn't have so many. So in health, demographic change, and well-being, we had 6 topics, which was one of the largest impact. And for food security, for that societal challenge, we had 2 topics connected. Please, next slide. Just to give you an overview, and for
I will just go fast through them.
Yeah, 3, 4, and 5 there were not so many, and 5 more. But for instance, in energy, just 1. Transport, just 1. And then on the last slide, you can see in societal challenge 6. In the next slide, you can see in societal challenge 6, Europe in a changing world, we had a lot of topics. So of course, this was also due to this large participatory process, and you can really see that these are the topics that are closer to, or the challenge, the societal challenge, which is also probably closer to the real-world experience of the citizens. That was our hypothesis. And very interesting for societal challenge 7, security, we didn't have any topics there. So it wasn't really a topic in divisions, and since divisions were our basis, we didn't produce research topics for this societal challenge. Next, please. So this is the question we ask, of course, ourselves. How does it benefit RNI agenda setting? And what we did within the process, after the participatory process was over, we took a look and evaluated the 23 topics reproduced against 16 expert-based foresight reports, which had a bit of the similar aim of informing, for instance, Horizon 2020 with regard to agenda setting. So you can just publish a paper with my colleagues Aaron Rosa and Feline Warnke from Easy Fraunhofer on that. But next slide, please. I will give you a brief overview on what we see. This should be an animated slide, so I'll tell you about the topic you can see, the basic universal income so nobody's left behind. This was quite interesting because in our evaluation of the Simulacr topics against the expert-based foresight topics, we had some topics that were really well represented within the foresight reports also. For instance, the first one, which you cannot see, is data for all, share the power of data. It was about datafication of society and how the use of data and big data can really benefit citizens. So of course, this was a topic which was also represented in the foresight reports. But in our analysis, we didn't only look at the foresight reports in terms of is the topic there, but we also did a qualitative assessment of the content of the Simulacr topic and if it's represented in the foresight topics. And this results in the small green bar, which you can see in the bottom corner. So for basic income, for instance, it was one of the topics that was least represented in the expert-based foresight reports. You can see only the degree of coverage is low, so 2 out of 16 reports mentioned this topic in some kind of way. This is the degree of coverage. And then the alignment part is really the qualitative alignment of how does the foresight report frame this topic and how do the citizen-based topics of Simulacr frame this topic. And here we only find an alignment of 10% or so to speak low. We did that for all topics. Next slide, please, but I can only give you an impression here. On average, we found a degree of coverage of 10 out of 16 reports. So if you take all of the Simulacr topics, 10 out of 16 reports reflected these topics, which on the one hand is good for the Simulacr topics, so to speak, because you can really say the foresight reports also see these topics as critical at the moment. On the other hand, if you look at the qualitative alignment, the average is quite low. It's only 31%. Don't pay too much attention to the percentages, but it's low. And this is really an argument for expanding such citizen-based agenda setting activities, complementary to the expert-based ones, because you can really see, even if the same topics are discussed, we have qualitative divergence, which is quite big. So the citizens frame the same topics in another way, and this is important, I think. And of course, we also found some unique topics in the experts reports, of course, but also in the Simulacr topics, we had some more unique ones. Next slide, please. You can see some patterns of differences in Simulacr and expert-based studies. So the citizen-based topics, they were more referring to the social impact of technology versus the economic impact of technology, which was emphasized in the expert-based studies. The Simulacr topics, they paid a lot of attention to individual and to community, while the expert-based studies had global and international perspectives. And also the research that is advocated in the topics that differs. So Simulacr emphasizes often localized experiments, inclusive research methods, and also integrated research goals. And on the other hand, the expert-based reports, they don't advertise research so much. They're just saying, okay, these are the topics, but they are not saying what should research do about it. And they have, of course, a broader institutional awareness, and they rather advocate traditional research by established bodies. So these are some of the patterns of differences. You can read it closer in the deliverable 5.2 and also in the papers we produced. Next, please. Yeah, so these are some of the key results that we gained from this comparative analysis. I already told you that we have in Simulacr produced some unique insights into any given research topic. This is due to the low qualitative alignment with the expert-based reports. And you can also say that the expert reports in Simulacr are complementary in a way. So they both offer unique topics, but they also offer different views of the same topics. And I already said that this provides some empirical evidence for the continuation and expansion of such citizen-based agenda setting activities. Next. Of course, we ask ourselves, what can it used for? Of course, our main aim was to inform Horizon 2020, but then, of course, the topics that we produced are broad in some way, and they are also valid for some time, I think. They can still be valid in 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. And so we are hoping that they will be taken up in also Horizon Europe and FP9. Also, industry can use them. We've also made some close collaborations with national policymakers and national funding agencies. It was one of the main aims of our work package on communication, that all the partners in the 30 countries establish or use their existing relationships to national funding agencies and try to inform them with the topics we produced. Of course, also NGOs, educators can use them, but then, of course, also researchers themselves, and as we speak in this webinar, like flagship projects, like the Human Brain project. Next, please. this is a bit of the end of the presentation. We were also really interested in what are the effects of Simulacr on H2020. So in the proposal, we already said that we will do an impact assessment. And this was the Czech partner, the Technology Center, Elenka Hebakova, was task leader to this presentation, to this, okay, I can't see the screen now. Okay. She was leading this task, and what she did was during the runtime of Simulacr, she compared our topics with the draft program that was then issued for the last course of Horizon 2020, for that last period. And just from comparing our topics and the draft program, you can see clear correspondences. Of course, we cannot say this is our impact, because the other presenters already said it. It's hard to measure impact, and it's hard to find evidence for impact, but we can see the correspondences in at least 22 H2020 topics. I already told you about the societal challenges that they were most referred to. But then also in this task, our colleagues did a survey and interviews with 23 EC policy officers. And this was really to get also a qualitative grip on how, or if and how they used the topics that we produced. And these are some of the highlights of this survey. So the POs in general believe that citizens are capable of suggesting directions for research, which may sound trivial, but which is really not trivial, because there's also it is not trivial to hear this from the side of POs, that they can really use the directions, and that they are valued as the citizens are valued as capable of producing such directions for research. And of course, the coverage of needs and issue and the novelty of topics was comparable with other resources. So that was highly appreciated. Then some POs also said that they used the results as justification for some topics that they had for some time laying around, and they needed, let's say, justification to take them out and put them on the table. And but in the end, one PO said, okay, there's a concrete case for a call where he used the Simulacr topics, but the survey was anonymous, so we can't really say which topic this was. Next slide, please. This is also the impact assessment. It was some of the barriers that they identified. So of course the results should have been delivered earlier. And we were aware of it when we started the project. It was already clear that the last calls of Horizon 2020 were already in the shaping, and that we had a really strict time plan to deliver our results, or also the intermediate results, to have the chance at all to have impact. Of course, if we would have started the project 1 or 2 years earlier, I think this would have been really beneficial to the agenda setting process of the last calls of Horizon 2020, because also there was some limited awareness of the topics in the end, while the agenda setting process in the Commission was going on, and some of the use of the quality of topics differed. But the methodology that was applied in that project was considered adequate and for trustworthy outputs, and that was, I think, one of the main impacts the project had was to show it's possible on this scale, and you can really use the outputs. So this was the high impact we had. And of course, some policy officers said that they would need more projects like this. Okay, so I think that was it. Next slide. Is there anything left? It's just the references, and this is my contact. I'm really sorry about the technological troubles we had. I hope I could still give you a good overview about the project.